Hello and welcome to What We're Watching. It's Katherine.
And Liz.
And Ed.
And John.
I'm going to start with Baby Reindeer. I started watching it, and I don't know how I got this idea that it was a comedy. It's not a comedy.
Well, it's a comedy about stalking.
I don't even think it's a comedy about stalking. There's nothing comedic about it.
But the lead character is a comic.
That's true. Okay, so Liz.
And in real life, he's a comic.
Is he? Wait.
Yeah.
In real life, he's a comic? I don't know if that... Well, okay, look. It's based on his true life story of being stalked. And in this, he's playing a comedian. But I don't think he's currently trying to still be a comedian. Because also in the course of the show, he realizes like, oh, this comedy thing is actually not for me. He did this as a play, but more like a one-man show. So not like, ha, 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 I'm funny. This was very dark and a drama, really. So Liz, you watched it also.
Yes.
It's 7 episodes. It's on Netflix. They're shorter episodes. They're like half an hour-ish. So, you know, I mean, sometimes half an hour people are like, well, then it's a comedy. No.
It's got the buzz going right now. So I started to watch it. And then I got caught by my husband.
Oh.
He's like, I've heard about this Baby Reindeer. You started to watch it? I go, oh, God.
Busted.
I said, all right, I'm about 1.5, maybe 2 episodes in. 2 episodes in. So then we binge watched. He said it was the first binge watch he's ever done where, you know, basically the same day he started it and finished it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I don't know why we had all this free time. I'm trying to think back what was going on. But we did somehow.
Well,
because
also,
they're not long episodes.
7 episodes and they're not that long. So you could do a pretty concise binge.
I mean, we've been to Dune recently. So, yeah, if you could find a 3-hour window, you might be able to lock that down.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I did do some digging in. I was like, well, how much of this is true? All of it. So... why?
Yeah. But I some of it I think is enhanced. But yes, it's a true stalker story.
True stalker story. So it's this man. He's a comedian. He's working at a pub.
Donnie.
He changed his name. Yeah, he changed his name because this is actually Richard Gadd is the name of the creator and writer who this happened to. And he's been doing some press, so you might see him on social media talking about that it was very difficult to do the play and really talk about, because it's not super flattering. He doesn't make a lot of good decisions in this whole thing. And he also really discusses all of both the stalking and this other very dark thing that happens.
Yes, it was grooming leading to sexual assault.
Yes. This is interesting because he's playing himself. And this happened approximately 10 years ago. So he physically doesn't look as young as he would have been when this happened.
Yes.
So there was definitely in this grooming situation, they clarified it at one point that the person is significantly older. So he's supposed to be in his mid-20s and this person is in their 50s. So, yeah, it was real dark.
Yeah, they give warnings almost every episode that about either mental illness or about sexual assault. So going back to your like thinking that it was going to be a comedy, no, I don't really remember laughing a lot in it.
No.
There were definitely jaw-dropping moments though.
Yeah. I like the style of it. Visually, it was really stylized and looked really good. And maybe that was part of why I thought this was going to be a comedy. I don't know.
The pace, too. And it sort of had a Fleabag element to it where some elements were so absurd, you were sort of shocked and awe because the stalker, which was Martha,
his stalker. Also, the name was changed, but ironically, the woman who stalked him is now right back on social media and like basically accusing him of now stalking her by making this Netflix thing. There's a lot of in real life weirdness that's still going on. Yeah.
And Jessica Gunning plays the character of Martha.
That might have been why I thought it was a comedy, because she plays a very funny character in Outlaws, which I have talked about on the podcast.
Okay.
She's hilarious in it. And so, of course, I'm like, well, she's hilarious. So she's going to be super funny. Not that stalking is funny at all, but I don't think I totally knew what it was about.
It's got a dark humor. And there's some of that in there, but it is very challenging material. But from the moment the character Martha walks into Donnie's pub.
Yep, where he's a bartender, basically.
I mean, the energy right out of the gate should have sent off a million red flags. And I think it would to someone that hadn't experienced what he had just previously experienced when Martha walked into his life.
Yeah.
So he felt very depleted, somewhat worthless. That's why he would almost allow someone like this into his life.
Yeah. And I think it was really interesting when he basically talks about he's doing a stand-up routine and it kind of devolves into...
Well, this takes place in Scotland.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
Because he goes to the Edinburgh Comedy Festival, which those of us even remotely in the industry have heard about that as a creative space where people get discovered. A lot of comics. We've talked about Hannah. What's her name?
Hannah Gadsby?
I think people were discovered there and, then got big Netflix specials or opportunities. So he's a stand-up comic who does a lot of
prop comedy.
Which
is not great.
But I will say his first bit, which totally bombed, my husband and I, that was some of the biggest laughs that we had because it was so bad and awkward. I thought, I think I would laugh at this if I was sitting, because it was so like, is this for real? Like, is this guy, like almost awkward humor? So, he's trying to find himself, be creative, the opportunities. And we've talked about it before that, the entertainment industry is ripe for being taken advantage of in some ways. Mm-hmm. And especially for someone that moves here from, way outside the industry, doesn't understand how it works at all. It's so easy for them to get manipulated or taken advantage of. Put that in this context of a stand-up comic, maybe want to try to be a writer, and that's how he gets basically groomed, wooed into this very precarious relationship that then ends up, it was really sexual assault. And it was kind of Harvey Weinstein. This was a kind of a equatable because it was a grooming process.
It was very much that promising opportunity and fame, and I'm going to help you.
Access. I'm going to woo you, and you're going to, and then I'm going to be able to take advantage of you because you've gone in too deep to get yourself out.
Yeah.
So he does stand up still after that happens to him, but it's really not good. And yes, he has a breakthrough.
It's like I don't want to give too much away. I think we've already discussed it. Like, this is a lot of the plot points.
Yeah. But
the upshot is it's really good.
Yes.
It's challenging material, as Liz has said, but well worth watching. It's astonishing that this is a true story and that he did it as a play, and then now it is this really beautifully done, stylized Netflix limited series. I'm definitely saying people should watch it.
It speaks to loneliness on one of its main topics
and the vulnerability of that, because that's what I was going to say, that in his sort of breakdown of it, he really cops to, he was desperate for validation and attention.
Connection.
And that was why he was able to, get involved in this and then not extract himself and not make good decisions to be like, this is bad. I should not be doing this. Both of the situations, both the grooming situation and the stalker situation.
And that is why he basically allows Martha into his life, because there is somewhat of a reflection. He can see himself in her desperation, her loneliness.
And it feels good when,
but good God,
she's saying he's so great.
There were so many moments you're like, where this is going. How bad this is. This is really a huge red flag. She is really not getting any of the signals. She doesn't know how to back down. Those are clearly lies. Those are huge exaggerations. Like, good God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But the main character, Martha, basically playing opposite Donnie, she freaking nails it.
Oh, she's fantastic.
I mean,
she's fantastic.
Award season, somebody better be on their Netflix PR marketing and get her some nominations.
Yeah, I would hope so.
I found it so interesting. There's a side story of there's a girlfriend that he's with that he ends up breaking up with when all this like sexual trauma happens and all that. And then there's a new girlfriend that comes into his life, which was such an interesting storyline and played so well by Nava Mao.
Yeah, she was great.
I mean, so confidently portrayed with an interesting twist to it, which I don't want to give away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I just,
overall, the cast, so good. I just want to shout out his parents. Weren't his parents fantastic? They were only in 2 episodes and they were later.
Dad.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yes, because, that goes to something that's been spoken about for a long time, where is if a heterosexual male, is abused by another male, they can start to have questions of their own sexuality or start to feel they're less than a man. The way his father handles that is, like I said, don't want to give too much away, but beautiful.
Yeah. Really good.
Yeah.
Some really outstanding performances.
It's so original. Thank you, Netflix. It's original IP, a real story based on a real thing by a creative person being out there in the space.
And being vulnerable.
Yes, and hitting really hard topics. And like we both thought, on Rotten Tomatoes, it has 100.
Oh, does
rightfully so. And like I said, like we both thought, like, oh, this is going to be kind of funny. Real quickly, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to find humor in this, but it was so well done.
Yeah.
And I was the same way. You know, you're like, boop, 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 boop on your phone immediately. Like, is this based on a real story? Because this is crazy. And that's the old saying, like, you know, sometimes life is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, you can't write this. You can't make this up.
No.
On that note, so I looked it up, and it was over 40,000 emails she sent, which they did try and indicate that like 40,000. And they were like bananas. And I'm dyslexic, so I'm trying to read. They put a lot on screen, and the spelling was all crazy, and
she would write in a frantic way, obviously, and they would put a graphic up of sort of the text, and the misspelling was really bad. So yes, as a dyslexic person, Mark, my husband would be like, "What is she saying there?" I would like pause, and I'm like, "It's like F you, baby reindeer," but like the way it was spelled, like in like, you know.
Very interesting. All of these are real. He had a record of all this stuff. So all of those are real. Also, 744 tweets. So she got his social media and she was tweeting at him. She wrote him letters totaling almost 106 pages and also left about 350 hours worth of voicemails. Hours. I mean, and all of this is, you know, he still has all this material. It's craziness.
Yeah, material. I was like, man, if I'm a creative and I'm coming up with my own stories to do stand-up and I'm finding myself not getting any laughs, somebody writing that much, that might be a good resource.
Well, yeah.
I might turn that in.
Yeah, he didn't use it for his stand-up, but
No.
he did. That's how he pivoted and was like, no, I need to do this breakdown one-man show about it.
Well, because by that time, he is truly traumatized by her and also not dealing with what happened to him. And it's that saying, there's not shame in what happened to you. There is shame in letting it control the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah.
And when he finally takes control of his narrative on stage, it literally changes the course of his life.
Yeah.
But he was so beaten down, traumatized, because she's a true stalker, popping up in places you really wouldn't want her. And she was violent. I mean, there is some scenes that you're just like,
yeah.
You're scared of her, and so you can't even imagine having experienced this because the actress physically is sort of a bigger woman. And so when she comes at you, it is like a wall, not just of emotions, but physically coming at him and people that he cares about.
And he's kind of a slight guy.
Oh, it's Baby Reindeer. I'm not going to reveal why she calls him Baby Reindeer.
Which she on social media is now saying that is not even true. You're like, oh my God.
Well, I don't think you need to embellish it based on what you found.
No.
But, you know, you're going to take some creative license for a story narrative. I mean, when you go to the cops, and that's always been true, stalker laws in the United States and I'm sure abroad are very challenging because unless there's a real threat, it doesn't become something that the cops are going to get involved with.
Yeah, they can't take action.
Right.
Is what their position anyway.
Yeah.
They're like,
So-
just all of these emails. We can't do anything about that.
Right.
You're like, really? Come on. Whew. Anyway,
I think they
really,
had
really
changed
good.
it based on actually just that level of harassment of getting 1,000 emails a day or, you know, that many text messages. It's so disruptive to your life. I can't even imagine. So
anyway, so it's really good. The cast is phenomenal.
Yes.
It's hard-ish watch, but pretty quick because
it's so creative.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's so good.
So well done. And like I said, kudos to Netflix and to the industry. These are actually type of stories that we as viewers want to see. It was so original, so unique, and then it makes you go on these deep dives to learn more about the creator and find out, oh, this is real, and you know, and it was a unique voice. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Okay, so that's Baby Reindeer.
Before we get off Baby Reindeer, I heard all of that, and it made me remember a comedy with a stalker. Wait, there is a comedy with a stalker. I would happily recommend everyone go back and watch Flight of the Conchords.
Oh,
she is my favorite.
I know. The character Mel, played by Kristen Shaw. She's one of the best stalkers out there.
Yeah,
But
that's a very innocuous,
she's
sweet
just
stalker.
Yeah, she's just their number one fan. She's just their number one fan. She's really the only one that ever attended their shows. She's just
so
but
good.
she was ahead of the curve. She got it before everybody else.
She
So
really did.
Oh, she was so good.
Yeah.
Okay, so Baby Reindeer, real good. Okay, so next I wanted to talk about the movie Shirley, which is on Netflix. And that stars Regina King as Shirley Chisholm, who was the first Black Congresswoman. She was elected in 1968. And this movie, it's a biopic, but it's really narrow. It's really about her running for the president of the United States in 1972. So she was running to try and get the nomination for the Democratic Party. I don't think I had ever really known this story.
1972, no, that would not.
No, but I mean, just historically, I was aware of her because she was the first Black Congresswoman. She served for 7 terms. She represented one of the districts in New York and did a lot of amazing stuff. So I knew of her. I did not know that she ran for president, and this was really quite an amazing story. The only funny thing about it is the way that I ended up watching it. My husband was having some medical problems, and I had to take him to various ER visits. And so I watched this movie over the course of 2 different 6-hour ER visits.
Oh, seen in the ER?
Yes. So I just had my little headphones and I had it on my phone because they would take him in and do whatever. And I'd be like, oh, I guess I'll watch 15 or 20 minutes of this. And it was so engaging that I kept coming back to it because I will admit, I tried to watch a couple other things and they did not stick.
Oh, well, Regina King.
Oh, she's a force. She's so great.
And she's been a little MIA because of the death of her son.
Yep.
So there has been because she was having a moment. I mean, there was so much she was doing. And then,
because she's also really broken open as a director. That's her new thing.
and that's, that's life, right? All of a
for
sudden,
her.
like, your life is going so fantastic career-wise. She seems so happy. She was doing, interviews and would even speak of her son and all this. And then he unfortunately...
Yeah, young adult.
He killed himself. Which, mental illness is...
It's horrible.
So, and then that's your only child. And so good for her that she's back. And I saw a promo for it. And I was like, yeah, right on. And then there was a huge billboard on Sunset Boulevard.
Regina King plays Shirley, and she is fantastic. A nice marriage of a very strong actress and a super strong character. So you're like, yeah.
You're like, I cannot believe it took this long to do this movie. But that tells you about the industry.
Yeah.
That we're like, a character, a leading Black woman about a Black Congresswoman for how this wasn't done 15, 20 years ago, but
I'm glad it's done now, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. It's great. It's a great story, really interesting, much more about politics and the going on behind the scenes than I ever understood of how to even try and get the nomination and the kind of support you have to. And this is in 1972. So, even the money that they're talking about is really low compared to what it takes today.
the super PACs and all the things you got to raise.
It was really fascinating, though. The rest of the cast is amazing. Sadly, we have lost Lance Reddick, who is in it, and he's so good. He's one of her big supporters in helping run this campaign.
I just watched him. I mean, because if I flip the channels and any of the John Wick is on there.
Yeah, people
and
love him in
he's,
that.
he's not the head of the Continental, but he basically runs the desk at the Continental and knows everything. He was lovely always in interviews. Anytime I ever saw him doing an interview, that was very unexpected that he passed away.
He was so wonderful in so many different
It's only been about a year
things.
that he passed away.
Yeah, it's pretty recent. So he's in it, and Terrence Howard is in it. He's very good. It's really, really good. I'd say for sure watch it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend trying to do it in an ER. That's not the ideal way. I don't think that's what they intended, for you to watch it in, small chunks while waiting in an ER, but whatever. That's how I did it, and I still really super enjoyed it. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is Dead Boy Detectives.
I don't even know I've heard of that.
Okay, so I didn't realize this, but it is a spin-off of The Sandman, which is a famous graphic novel by Neil Gaiman, which was then turned into a really cool Netflix series. Dead Boy Detectives was characters that were first introduced in Sandman. So this is a spin-off, but it doesn't really totally feel like a spin-off. There's definitely some crossover characters in this series. Like Death is in the first episode. who
He always got to make an appearance.
well, in this
What
case, it's a
jerk.
woman, which I love.
Okay.
She's great. In the graphic novel, comic book world, they're their own thing. They've showed up multiple times. They've had their own series run. So I was intrigued as soon as I heard a spin-off of Sandman. Because I will watch virtually anything that has like a supernatural thing.
And you also really like Neil Gaiman.
I love Neil Gaiman.
Right.
This is
Good Omens.
Yes, Good Omens. That is on Prime Video. He is fantastic. Love, love, love Neil Gaiman. This series feels like it's skewing younger, primarily because the two main ghosts, they're dead. They're ghosts. And they
What?
Yeah, I know.
How could you reveal that? Oh my God, I can't watch it
Spoiler,
now. Oh.
based on the title,
Okay.
Dead Boy Detectives. It's two boys who are dead who are detectives.
Boy. Oh.
Yeah, well, so they're like not boys. They're like young teenage men, probably played by 20-year-olds.
Yeah, that's
so.
hard casting because you're dead, so we really can't have you mature, grow.
Yeah, no, you got to be like age set. So there's two main detectives, these two guys, and they are a ghost from 1916 and a ghost from 1989. And they are best friends, and they are working supernatural type of cases, which is a great premise. I love this. And then they end up in this very first episode meeting a medium who can help them deal with other people. Now, one of the ghosts likes this idea, and one of the ghosts does not. So it's a little bit of a problem that they have to overcome. But they're now a team, these three.
I mean, what else do they got to do?
I know.
I mean, God, you
And
found
also,
a purpose.
yeah, you'd think that it would be helpful to have somebody who could see you and help with any sort of living people problems. Anyway.
Whoopi
so-
Goldberg from The Ghost.
Exactly.
What's that called? Was it Whoopi Goldberg, the movie called The Ghost?
It was called just Ghost.
Just Ghost.
Not The
Oh,
Ghost.
not The Ghost. Ghost.
I think it was called The Pottery Turn.
Ooh.
Yes, it was called Ghost.
It was called Ghost.
And I was going to say Michael J. Fox in Frighteners.
Frighteners. What's that? I don't know that.
Who directed that, John? It was a Lord of the Rings director, Peter Jackson.
Oh.
It was
What?
like his,
I forgot
Like
it was
way
one of his
early?
way early ones. There was no Weta to do the effects, but
Weta or Weta?
Weta.
I've heard it
Sorry,
said
Weta.
Weta. So that's his New Zealand team company that does all of his effects.
yeah.
It's actually a very good movie, but I remember it is scary.
Well, I mean, there's a murderer in it. It's not just detective stuff. There's actually someone after someone. But
Yeah,
it's a good one.
My son is now taken on my husband's DNA gene of liking horror films, and I'm just like, I'll come into a completely dark house, and you can hear the sound system on, and there's some horrible, it's always like a nun, an evil possessed nun.
There's a lot of nuns lately in horror.
And I'm like, hello, like won't even walk across the front doors,
You're in your own horror movie. You're
No.
like creak in your own house.
Like, why every light off in the house?
Yeah.
And that's how I like to watch. When I would go over as a child to my husband's house to watch scary movies, that's what they would do. Now, I didn't have the balls. It wasn't my house. I was a little kid to be like, can we turn on like one light somewhere
Just
in the house?
something.
I was like, I would go to the bathroom, nothing, because what's going to happen is I'm going to go to the bathroom, and now the ghoul, the ghost, the murderer in the movie is now going to attack me in this very dark house.
Forget about something coming out of the mirror.
Oh, don't bring up mirrors. No, that's evil porthole for some evil deity to come through. No,
Of course, that's what mirrors are for.
no. So I was like, I'm going to be out. You guys have 4 hours if you're going to watch a horror flick, but I would like a palate cleanser to clear the energy out of the house before I come in. So then you can watch, a Family Guy or something like that. So,
Or, of course, Family Feud.
but this is not really horror, right? Oh, my God. It's such a great episode I watched recently. And Steve was getting such a kick out of it, Family Food. You guys might know I'm obsessed with it. This guy was so hyper. This one, basically family lead. He's on the lead mic, right? He is sweating buckets like in broadcast news, like Al Brooks. And I'm like,
Albert Brooks.
Albert Brooks. I'm like, they are doing him dirty that no one in the commercial is going up and like
Can we pat him dry?
But because it's like, it's so, and Steve kept doing double takes of him and being like shaking his head and looking out the audience, shaking his head. It's like, oh my, he has like his mother, his sister, like.
They know it's good TV.
Oh no, it was like, glisten. He's bald, so it's like it's even more of like a
Just
wet cue
dripping.
ball. It was awful. Okay, I didn't know how we got sidetracked on that. So
Oh, because you said you needed a palate cleanser after a horror movie.
Family Feud will do it. Okay,
Yep.
so but is this is not really a horror.
There are some semi-horror elements to
Okay.
it. It's a little too light for it to really feel horror.
See, then that
and
I can handle
also
that.
super stylized, so it doesn't feel super real. So
Yeah,
it
I can handle that then.
hit horror for me. The other thing I wanted to mention, because this is a horror connection, is that the creator of it, who is also the showrunner, has a big history with the show Supernatural. And I watched Supernatural for a long time. I didn't finish it out because it was on forever. I think I watched up to season 10, which you would have thought, no, it kept going after that. But I did watch a lot of
15
it.
seasons. I think I've stalled out mid 14.
15. Wait.
The 15th season was like doled out in real small chunks.
Oh,
over
was
like
it?
2 years. It was the pandemic. It took a long time to get that one available to stream.
What? Are you looking up Supernatural?
Yeah, because I'm like, wait a
Yeah.
minute.
You gotta
It was
understand.
long.
Those two guys are like, wait, we could just have a career in Canada? Let's get married. Let's have kids.
No, it's great. Yeah. Yeah.
I am just shocked because I've heard of it. I have not watched it. Yeah. Started in 2005 and went to 2020. So it was 15-year run. That is insane.
Yeah, I watched it for a long time.
Good for them. That reminds me of The Flash, where I tried to start watching that with my son. And then we both, because you're not that I want that to still exist. I want full seasons. I want to be, I don't need just be 8 episodes.
Yeah.
And 3 seasons. Like you can go deep. It's fine. But Ethan and I have taken years to watch The Flash, like years. And we're still probably only halfway through it.
Yeah, you got to just keep plugging away at it sometimes.
Supernatural. That's when you're like, I need a new series to get into. Okay.
Well, it definitely was interesting because it started off as just a Monster of the Week type of show, and then it evolved into really big arc stories.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, how many times are we going to save the world? Many times. Also,
Thank
everyone
God.
has to go to hell at some point. You're like, okay, I will say this is how I ended up stopping watching. I'm a big fan of Jensen Ackles. Think he's super handsome, really great actor. Love the dynamic
He plays
of
one
the
of the
brothers.
brothers.
Yeah, the brothers' storylines were all great. I was watching, and I want to say it was during season 10, and they had some story where there was like some demon had taken over this hospital, and this lady
that
had
does
died.
happen. Okay.
Yeah, because they don't save everybody. People definitely die in Supernatural, and this lady dies. And my husband was like walking through the other part of the room, and I'm just like watching it. I had it on the DVR or whatever. And Jensen Ackles' character ends up saying, because in this hospital she had a baby, and he said, "What are we going to do with this baby?" And my husband was like, "What are you watching?" And I was like, oh God. Because it was such a ridiculous, like, moment, and not a, it was just like, oh,
Their broy
no.
lines to each other were great until you have one, what are we going to do with this baby? And you're like, all right,
What are we going to do this baby?
So that is actually,
Wait, do we know what happened to the baby?
they did find somebody to take the baby. I forget how that all worked out, because really that was sort of a moment where I was like, uh-oh, I don't think I can watch this show anymore. Definitely I can't watch it if Eric is going to walk by and be like, I am judging you for watching this show.
Shame watch it.
Yeah, shame watch it.
Okay.
So it is a little bit of a running joke in our house. Every once in a while, Sarah, my daughter, or I will just say, what are we going to do with this baby? You know, if there's any kind of question that maybe we're watching a show that we shouldn't be watching or should put a pin in it.
That's the bar. Okay.
That's the bar. What are we going to do with this baby? Okay. Whoops. Anyway. All right. So, yes, the showrunner creator came from Supernatural. And also, this is one other connection that while I was sleuthing, I don't know why I always call it sleuthing. Yes, I just went on Google.
Research.
Yeah, I know. It's like really deep research. He was involved in The Flight Attendant with Kaylee Cuoco. And then I'm going through the cast list of this, and I'm like, oh, there's an actress with the same last name. Yeah, it's Kaylee Cuoco's sister. And she's great in this. She plays a butcher, like kind of a weird, tattooed, fun, I don't know, she's a great character. So yeah, it was funny. You're like, oh yes, there are always like connections. So this showrunner was involved in Flight Attendant. This sister had a small part in that, and now she's in this. And you know, Supernatural, there's someone else in the cast who was in Hell in Supernatural, and now she's like playing somebody in this. Like, I don't know. I love when people are like from other parts of your career pop up, and that you can see it. You can actually like figure it out. You're like, oh, you guys know each other from this. Great. Okay, so anyway, there you go. I'm enjoying it. It's in progress for me. It's 8 episodes on Netflix. So that is Dead Boy Detectives. Okay, Liz, what else you got?
I watched the documentary, The Synanon Fix.
What is that?
It's on HBO Max. It was directed by Rory Kennedy. She has a production company that I think primarily deals in documentaries. It's a 4-part series. It is about a organization that started in the late 50s in Santa Monica, California. That's
our backyard.
And I got to give a shout out to my girlfriend, Heather Angel. She recommended it. She reached out to me and said, hey, your parents, like, didn't they live in Santa Monica in like 60s? Like, would they have known anything about this? I'll follow up with that angle of my research on that. I said, I don't know. All right, I'll just dive into it. I'm going to go to dinner with you this weekend, so better watch it so we can talk about it.
Oh, yeah. If somebody makes a recommendation, especially if you're going to see them in the near future, John, you
Definitely
disagree?
not.
Oh, you're so...
You gotta
That's
do
you.
what-
That's fine.
You got to do what you would like to do.
It's funny. There are definitely people who are like, if you recommend it, I'm now not going to watch it.
What?
Where I'm more like, oh, you... if I like you and I agree with your opinions and you recommend something, I'm definitely going to try and watch it.
Okay, I am on a group text. Now there's 2 versions of it because it's a group of girlfriends led by my girlfriend Lainey Ziv, who I've talked about before, who will do recommendations in TV and film. Mostly all in streaming. I don't think anything's come up where like actually go to the movie theater. Everything's usually, very accessible in some way. And well, at one point, Lainey got very irritated because the text messages, they got very sidetracked by birthday wishes, Mother's Day, political stuff. So she literally goes, I'm starting it again. This one is only for recommendations. Now, I think a couple people have broken the rules, but for the most part, it's on there. And Lainey does watch a lot of television, and she will recommend things. And so quite often, like I already watched Baby Reindeer, for example, but then she shouted it out on the group text. And so a lot of times I am watching what is being recommended. Sometimes I chime in. So yes, I will take recommendations and I will watch them, John. So this was...
It's your life.
Thank you. Heather Angel recommended it, and it is about, like I said, an organization started in the late 50s in Santa Monica, California. It was primarily for people that felt like AA did not work for them. And they addicts needed some place to go for drug rehabilitation. It was led by Charles Chuck Diedrich, and he was the founder of it, an ex-alcoholic for sure. And I guess smack opium in the late 50s, going into the 60s.
Smack?
Well, because that's the terminology. LSD.
Of the era.
Yeah.
Of the era. What is smack? Is that heroin, do we think? Okay.
And I don't really know.
Sure, Catherine.
I mean,
you don't know.
And
Of course I know.
And I really don't know. Weed didn't seem to be the issue. And so it started off, and they have, that's their thing. I think, the cult documentary genre is there archival footage that exists.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for some of these, the Duplass brothers and some other ones that are starting to get into this genre and realizing there's money in their darn hills because of the streaming platforms, right? So Rory Kennedy probably did some investigating, and there's a lot of archival footage, videos, tons. So there's
You
tons
hit a gold mine.
Yeah,
They
there's
were
tons of
recording
black
stuff,
and white videos of the program Synanon, and it's it's a lot like, get with it, man. Get off that. It's a lot of yelling in your face. And it's really but it's accountability. So it's going to what would be means, being held accountable if you're not using, what the hell's wrong with you. And it was working. Now, power corrupts.
Uh-oh.
So
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Did they break down the sin part of the Synanon, which I'm now understanding the title a little bit better, the Anon part?
but you're still sort of wrong because it's SY.
Oh.
So I actually don't know.
Symposium.
Right. Yeah. I'm I don't think it has
Really?
anything to do with the actual, original sin. Now, when you start building an organization and its true ethos, or is that
Purpose,
purpose of why it's going to exist, and then because power is corrupting, and Chuck, the main leader of it, who eventually marries one of the other followers, Betty, and she seemed to balance him. But you can only control someone so much when also money starts to come in.
Sure.
And because it was literally on Santa Monica, on the beach, is its founding place. So I did reach out to our mom. I'm like, Mom, because at one point, as sort of a pushback, some of the women shaved their heads, and Chuck, being sort of combative, was like, we'll all shave our heads. And everybody shaved their heads in the organization. So it was like, and some people were like, I didn't want to shave my head. And so then I thought, Mom, how did you not see these people like walking around Santa Monica? They weren't Hare Krishnas, like walking around bald, and wonder what the hell's going on here. Well, our mother at that point already had like 3 children when they was like mid-60s.
A little distracted.
She's like, I do remember the leader being very outspoken because he did a lot of local news.
Oh.
And so he was kind of hard to miss. And so she did remember him and them sort of the presence in Santa Monica, but not obviously getting involved. I'm like, well, thank God we avoided it. I mean, it was right there.
Well, luckily they were not doing smack, so they didn't have to get involved.
And, over the 4-part series, what, like any cult, like it's a corruptive, erosive element where you lose control. The huge red flags, they start to let in people that are not addicts, and it becomes sort of like a self-help, just organization, and that's the way you expand it, where, you broaden the acceptance of who's allowed in. And it really widened, and it became more self-help versus just directed at addicts.
Yeah.
And the big red flag, I just went like, they would separate children around 6 months old from their parents. Because Chuck's theory, now remember, Chuck was not like a doctor or a therapist to any like notable, certificate.
He was just a self-actualized in his own mind.
And guru.
Yeah.
His theory was like, after a woman weans her child, she should have no interest in that child. And it's better that the child is raised by the collective versus individual parents because... And listen, you can kind of go, okay, the leap of his logic is that most of the people that found this organization had real issues in their own childhood and their current lives. So are they going to be a corrosive element to their own children?
Oh, sure. Like the cycle of abuse.
Right.
So
not
we're
a good
going to
parent
break
from
it. Bad parent. Yeah.
Because if you're having the one-on-one or the 2 parents, influencing this child versus like a larger commune community. But I was like...
Maybe not that community.
Right. I was like, this is insane that you would separate the children. And then, of course, we're not going to put you in any type of real structured school, and you're basically digging ditches and helping us build the facilities out, or really that's going to teach you, your future life goals. And you're like, Then when the militaristic elements come in, I mean...
Militaristic? Ooh, that's a term.
Well, because what happens with a lot of these cults, the outside world starts questioning what the hell is going on in there, and you're going to have to defend yourself, or, and then it becomes this whole, like, doomsday theory type of element.
Geez.
But this organization, like I said, started in like 1958, and I think it officially got disbanded somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s because... And I am so for this, but like enough with the tax exemption for any religious organization. Completely friggin' over it.
Yeah.
At this point, the long established ones, if you can't make it work with what you've already got or get your, affairs in order, enough with you. But new ones popping up like this, where you're kind of like, this is not a religion. And even people within it, Chuck's daughter basically almost had to take over the reins at one point from him, but he really didn't let go of the reins. Even she'd go like, I kind of knew we weren't like a religion, so why we had tax exemption, I don't know, but you're a 501c3, so then you're a nonprofit and so on and so forth. But eventually, it's all about corruption, because when that gets taken away, it starts to fall apart. So what was this ever really about? Power and money.
Yeah.
The root of it, like so many things, because at one point, like the first episode, I turned toward my husband, Mark, and I go, this doesn't look half bad. This is before we knew they were taking the children away. Because I'm like, the commune vibe is like, once you just give up your worldly possessions and just enter it, there's nothing really wrong with it. And it wasn't a big sex cult. A lot of these cults, it's like becomes that, right? That was not one of their objectives. So... But mental abuse and like your loss of basically free will or control of your life. And that actually ends up being one of the big lawsuits against them, where some woman's like, hey, I don't even want to stay. Like, can I get out of here? And it's like 9 days worth of kidnapping, basically.
Jeez.
Because, we're going to convince you this is great. So in the cult documentary genre, like I said, this is very interesting and very good. And it was literally in our backyard growing up in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
But our mother and father just... weren't really that aware of it. But very fascinating, and it really makes you go, it starts with all the right purposes and wanting to help, and how easily something can be corrupted, and how sad that is. And it just ends up being, it doesn't even exist. And some of the former members they interview are still like really upset about the loss of community and the friendships and the bonds they had that are gone. And that's what's so dangerous about most of these cults, because you can have your one-on-one relationships that matter so much to you versus the overall organization, which may be corrupt, or the leaders might be corrupt. So very fascinating. It's only 4 episodes. Rory Kennedy did a very good job.
Nice.
Yeah, so.
I mean, not nice, but really interesting.
Yeah, if you're not into cults or documentaries, it's not for you. Okay? Then on totally taking a right turn on Netflix, The Gentleman.
Oh, yes.
So this is kind of a spin-off, an homage to Guy Ritchie's, and that's who directed this and created it, his 2019 film, The Gentleman.
Yeah, that's what I was mildly confused about, because I didn't ever watch that movie. And then I was like, wait, is Hugh Grant in this? No, that's the movie. What's going on?
No.
Well, let me just real quickly divulge that I have watched the first 2 episodes, maybe 2.5, and then I did kind of stop. So I am intrigued to hear a little bit more about it.
Well, Guy Ritchie has a pace and a style that this is absolutely similar.
Well, and he loves criminal underground kind of stories.
He likes the underbelly.
Don't pigeonhole him.
Okay, sorry.
I just think he likes really big, broad characters and a bit of the underbelly, the criminal world, or, he likes a lot of personality. So it basically begins in England, in an aristocratic, one of those homes like a Downton Abbey, okay?
Oh, yeah, like a big manor.
And what's interesting, a lot of us, if you like Downton Abbey or you like Bridgerton, and you learn that these estates, are a lot to maintain.
Currently very hard to maintain financially, like just the upkeep. I think the actual Downton Abbey manor, like that house, whatever the earl or the whoever
the
it is, still is living there, but like has to do all sorts of crazy things to make money to pay for it to not fall apart.
He's Airbnb-ing it out.
Yeah,
basically, yeah. He's like, you want your wedding here this weekend? Please have it here. So this family is in that same situation of where is the money going to come from to maintain this type of lifestyle? It's not as it used to be, right? So Eddie, the not eldest, and that starts out almost immediately sort of a scandal, played by Theo James, which some of you may know from White Lotus.
The most recent season of White Lotus. He was great in that. Yeah.
Yes.
Also, I really liked him in The Time Traveler's Wife, which apparently is not coming back. But he was very good, and I thought a good watch.
I had a little bit of background on him, or he was sort of on my radar, but not really. But White Lotus was like, oh, you're on my radar. You're very good looking. You're kind of a dick, diabolical, but you play it really well. Like, I like you. So he is playing the son of the aristocrat who has passed away, and technically his older brother Freddie, played by Daniel Ings,
who is incredible. Oh my! He's the worst. He is the worst.
Okay, so rightfully so, the dad was like, no, I'm going to skip over you, because if this is ever going to survive our family, it ain't going to be at your hands. So he gives it to Eddie, who was in the military, who was going to have to step away.
He's much more level-headed.
Yeah.
Like, as a character, he's very sort of the straight man of the whole thing.
Right. So going back to, the seed, pun intended, of how an estate like this would survive, where it's going to generate income from, because it cannot do it just within itself anymore. So Eddie takes over and realizes, oh, the numbers aren't adding up. How are we going to do that? And he finds out that the dad had subleased basically a huge section of the estate to pot
growers. Yeah.
Like I said, a seed, a weed empire run by a very criminal, scary enterprise, this family. And basically the daughter, Susie Glass, the Glass family.
She's great.
She comes in, Kaya Skull Del Rio. And Ray Winston plays her father. He's fantastic, but he's not really hands-on anymore. He's overseeing it all. She doesn't have complete control of it, but she's the badass who comes in and is like, if we just continue the arrangement, you'll be fine. Your dad really didn't interfere. Like, don't be an idiot. And Theo James, not so much an idiot, but he really, it's so funny, weed, which is now legal. I mean, it was not legal in this context in this time of this story.
Right.
But now you're like, you'd only be so lucky to have this $1 million enterprise running underneath your feet, and basically supplementing the entire income. But Theo James's character, Eddie, decides, I've got to figure out a way to get the family out of this.
Yeah. It's funny because the family estate is actually more of a dairy than anything. So there's a lot of sort of yogurt jokes. It's like, this money is not coming from yogurt. It's like, no. But also like estates like this were so huge. You literally could have this kind of thing buried on the property and almost never come across it.
Nobody in the family knew it was going on at all.
They were in the weeds.
Yes.
Yeah, they were in the weeds.
Jolie Richardson, who looks fantastic. Her costumes, that's the other thing. Decor, sets, costumes, casting, excellent. The lady, I think Lady Sabrina might have had a clue this was going on.
Yeah, I think she divulges, even in the first 2 episodes that I saw, that she knew. She was a blind eye kind of thing. Like, I'm not really acknowledging it. I'm not really involved. But of course I knew. The money had to come from somewhere, and we knew it wasn't coming from yogurt.
Yes. Yes, ignorance is bliss. Now, the way I actually think Guy Ritchie, this format of a series, episodic, works better for him because his pace in movies sometimes are so quick. It's like you barely get to even understand characters before they're gone or killed or just whatever. So that's sort of the overall story we just said. Each week, there's a new sort of dilemma that Eddie has to face to try to get himself out of this predicament with these pot-dealing emperor gangsters. But that only brings more gangsters in and more very challenging criminal elements into their lives.
Yeah, complications.
Yes. And then there was, of course, Giancarlo Esposito. So you might know from Breaking Bad, and he's had a real run the last 10 plus years. Stanley Johnston with a T, a very wealthy man who basically wants to buy into being an aristocrat. Mm-hmm. He has an overall evil entity element to him. I'm not want to blow too much, but it's a huge cast. I do understand why you stopped at episode 2 or 3 because it's so first of all, the brother Freddie does things that you're just like, I want to strap you to a chair and muzzle you because you F up everything.
He is infuriating.
And why your brother keeps on trusting you, I'm completely...
Don't even involve him.
I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like I said, there are elements of it, especially in this digestible way of a streaming platform. Mm-hmm. It's very fun to watch. But there really are moments you're just like... And Guy Ritchie loves to have you, go like, oh, likes to stun you with something very maybe like ultra violent or just, some character comes in. And he does, whoever his casting director is, always does a good job. You're like, I know that person's an actor, but some of the other ones, you're like, are they actually who they are? Are they, is this like now very religious, basically Irish gangster who is gonna kill you with this whole brood, and then there's travelers, and I mean all these characters, like, did you find them in central casting? I mean, like, how did this even come about? So big cast, lots of characters, it's kind of fast paced, a lot of absurdity. And forget, like, where are we burying all these bodies? I guess on this huge estate. Like, I mean, just like where stuff, you're just like, how is this even manageable? Like that isn't bringing in, I don't know, the police, like, it's his element. But Theo James carries it enough through that you kind of stick with him and you root for him. But yeah, I mean, it is a Guy Ritchie pace where you can get frustrated because there's just things you're like, there is no way that would happen, or that is so absurd. Why is it happening? Those elements. But the gentlemen, they're hardly gentlemen. There you go.
Well, maybe I'll return to it because I was enjoying it. There was a moment after the first episode where I was like, uh-oh, I feel like my husband would really enjoy this. So maybe I should pause, have him catch up. But then I was like, oh, God, sometimes it's too hard to wait for people to like merge in on a show. So then I talked to him about it, but then I watched another episode and then I watched another half an episode. So I'm like a disaster on this. So I have to decide if I want him to
abandon him.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I
just
did
watch it myself. yourself.
Yeah, I did watch it with Mark because I knew I'd be like, no, this will be one I'll get in trouble if I watch. Baby Reindeer, I knew immediately, but I was like, fuck him, I'm gonna do it.
And maybe he won't find out, but then he
did.
Yeah.
That's why, I mean, like, I know you can create your own account on the Netflix account, and we sometimes like click on Ethan's by accident. We're like, what is he watching? So I don't have the patience to do it. But yes, I just say watch it without Eric. Just get through it.
Okay, I'll go back to it and finish it.
Yep.
Okay, what else, or is that it for you?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. I mean, no pressure. That was
I have
good.
watched other things. No, come on.
No. Okay, Ed, you're up.
I watched a new series on HBO called The Girls on the Bus. And I'm drawn in on that one because it's got Melissa Benoist and Carla Gugino. So, like those two, whatever you're doing, let's watch it. Are you going to fight people? You're going to like be political, kind of sexy? Oh, just political. Okay, fine.
Sorry to interrupt. Is it Melissa Benoist, I think is how you say your name?
I have tried really hard to listen to people's own pronunciation of their names, and I then immediately have changed how I pronounce it because I look at it. So
You're like,
whatever.
I don't know.
I don't care.
But is she from Supergirl?
Yeah.
Okay.
Weirdly, the next thing I'm going to bring up is going to be a kind of a bridge between those two. So I'll save that for the next thing. But Girls on the Bus, I have been really enjoying it. I mean, I already liked The West Wing and some of the political stories, and this is just not a bunch of dudes figuring politics out. They're actually following a female politician going, for the presidency. And it's based on a book. The creator of the series wrote this book, Amy Chozick. It's called Chasing Hillary. And it's from her time on the bus when Hillary was going for the presidency in 2016. So they've updated all the storylines to like, you run into problems where you're going state to state and the laws are different in the states.
Oh, sure.
There's some stuff that they got to figure out. I think there's a couple, either one or two more episodes that haven't dropped yet. And the title of it, this is why I hadn't really looked into it much before, is referencing a book from another political follow story called The Boys on the Bus, which is Hunter S. Thompson and a whole bunch of other authors and their like backstory of from 1972, from right that exact same time when Shirley was running for office. I didn't realize these two kind of crossed over in that way.
Oh, wow.
And totally not enough for me. It's like less than once an episode you get a fantasy moment in the main character for Girls on the Bus where she's a writer and she's had an issue in her past where she's been not like lambasted as a bad writer, but she's like made herself part of the conversation, which you don't want to do as a journalist. So she became way too emotionally invested in a politician that torpedoed themselves, and then she was caught crying.
Oh no.
So for her character, she has these moments where you, like in the first episode, Hunter S. Thompson appears and is talking to her and she's having a conversation with him. Maybe he comes back once more. I've watched all 7 of the available episodes. You just don't get that piece enough for it to actually be part of the show. I really wish it was, because it's an interesting insight to the character that you don't get. There's no monologues. There's no individual conversation. The only time you get that is when she's talking to herself with these characters. I liked it, so do more of that, please. It's fine. It's a show. You're allowed to show us what the person is actually imagining, because you could do that. It's a show. You could show us anything. You don't have to be all serious. I think that has more to do with the creator being a political journalist maybe isn't in the fantasy creating whole other characters, or maybe didn't want to own how much she imagined Hunter S. Thompson championing her on and telling these stories.
Yeah, maybe didn't want to cross over into that area as much as you would have enjoyed.
I would have enjoyed it more, and so I think whoever is getting those pieces of that story into the show, keep at it, because it's enjoyable elements. And I'll just do a quick call out for the other actresses that are playing the main 5 ladies that are on the bus following this candidate. So it's Melissa Benoist, Benoist. However,
I think it's Benoist.
Please chime in on our social media clips and correct us. Carla Gugino, Christina Elmore, and Natasha Benham all play the main female characters. There's 4 main friends that become basically friends during this experience because they're stuck on the same bus together and figuring things out. And they're all in this spot in their different lives and ages where this is going to help or hurt their careers. And they're going to make something of this trip together. So I recommend watching that. It's not that complicated of a show to get into. It's just a politics show. They're going to talk about a lot of current real politics, so it's nice to have not a sitcom, but like somebody else write those stories and not the real people and the actual politicians, because those are horrifying like facts to find out. It's nice to see the politics like presented, like West Wing did, where you're like, oh yes, if he was the president, then America would have been good. But we don't get Charlie Sheen or not Charlie Sheen,
Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen. We don't get either one of those as the president.
I don't think we want Charlie Sheen. I'm just putting
Well,
that.
maybe
yeah.
we did get Charlie Sheen as the president under a slightly different name.
We kind of did.
Anyways, so connecting the girls on the bus, there is one storyline that I wanted to include. Scott Foley. Anybody remember Scott
Oh,
Foley?
sure, Scott Foley.
He is
Alias.
just recently revealed as being more politician than the surface that we were getting. He was much nicer character, much more polished, very, the good guy politician. We finally got, there's a dirty thread. Let's pull on that. Let's see where that goes. So, again, show's going to be, politics and some, interpersonal relationship stuff, but through the lens of that's the career. That's kind of more of the conversation is you want to do politics, you can't also be the woman. No, I think all of these women are showing, no, we're doing that. This is what we're choosing. We're choosing both these options. And yeah, it's been hard, but the premise of the entire series is the guys didn't have to fight these issues. The guys didn't have any of these when they were doing it with the guys on the bus. So we can. So leave us alone. We're doing what we want. Okay, great. I'm going to watch the series all the way through the end. And when they have 3 more seasons, I'm not sure how that's going to work because there won't be on the bus next season.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. What will they do when they're not on the bus?
I don't know. It'll be interesting because it's a lot of road trip and variety right now. I did watch something else, and although strangely, he's kind of a main character, but it's not like a real main character. I watched the movie Argylle, which if nobody's heard about Argylle,
It's very kind of Guy Ritchie.
yeah, and also like didn't get a lot of love, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll wait till that comes out and it's available on one of the many streaming platforms that I've got, and I did, and I'm watching it. I'm like, this is weirdly video gamey, and I'm not sure what's happening in this first 10 minutes. Well, that is an excellent switch. So the reason why I was like, I didn't know if I could totally bridge these two shows, but Melissa Benoist played Supergirl, and Henry Cavill is like kind of the main character in Argylle.
Are you going to connect Superman? Is that what you're doing?
Who played Superman? So I think those work perfectly to bring the podcast
okay.
together.
I mean-
and we were talking about Supernatural earlier.
Super. This is all super.
Well, it's perfectly fine that it looked a little bit video gamey to me because that is actually something that the premise of the whole movie. It's like a great marriage of, I think I brought this up on the podcast before, Jewel of the Nile. I'm sure we all remember the Jewel of the Nile. It's a writer who then gets sucked into one of her own dramas and experiences. Well, that is more or less what's happening in this, that a main character is, writing mystery novels, the main character being Argylle in the novels.
Oh, okay.
So it's like kind of a really amped up. His hair is ridiculous. It's like basically a square. Like if you'd had a James Bond character, like, little action figure, that he is made to look like, Henry Cavill is made to look like the action figure Argylle. So he's a little too cartoony.
Wait. Okay, so Jewel of the Nile. You know that immediately makes me also think of, what is it, Lost City with Sandra Bullock?
Right.
Okay, so Channing Tatum is like the character that she's writing about. Are you saying that this Argylle character is represented by somebody in this movie?
In the movie, the Henry Cavill character shows up like the main.
So he's Argylle, but Argylle is the character in the book.
Exactly. In the books, he is what the writer, Bryce Dallas Howard, imagines he would look like. So now, in the real world, in a real drama with real problems, she's still seeing him sometimes, which is fun. But then also, like, main cast is Bryce Dallas Howard, Henry Cavill, and Sam Rockwell. And between the 3 of those, it's so enjoyable to watch, like a good spy movie with a really fun actor like Bullet Train with Brad Pitt. That was like, he brought a lot of fun to that, and mostly he wasn't really on the job. He wasn't like super focused on all the details and the things. He's like, but what about this part? And then punching someone, you know. So this was fun in that same way that there was a lot of disbelief, like Kathleen Turner's character in Jewel of the Nile, like, what is happening? I don't want to do this adventure. But then gets on board and kind of like figures it out and is actually all right. And I will not ruin the surprise at the end / halfway through the movie that you got to get on board with.
Okay.
But yeah, so the no spoiler version is, it's a lot of fun, and the start is wildly off from the actual flavor of the movie because it's not a cartoon animation movie. And I was worried that I was going to get like, oh, is this what people are having a problem with? It doesn't look good. Oh, that was supposed to not look good. Okay, fine, I'm into that. It's supposed to look like an overdone action movie. Yeah, it did.
Perfect.
You really nailed that. I believe it.
So this would be more like an action comedy.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Because I do remember from the promotion, and I had thought I would probably like this, which it does sound like I would probably like this. So I will investigate. Did you say what streaming service?
I did not say the streaming service.
Yeah, it's an Apple. It's an Apple movie. It's one of these 3 movies this year that were $200 million movies. Yep.
Oh, wow. Apple. All right. Nailing it.
Wow, that is a huge budget.
Well, they also released in the theater. That's their thing.
Okay,
they're recouping the box office from the box office, not from the subscribers.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So from the promotion, I did see that it was like, she's a writer who is writing spy thriller stuff and accidentally, supposedly wrote something that is real and happening, and now they have to like save her, protect her.
That's the drama.
Yeah, don't overcommit on thinking that's what's happening.
Oh, okay.
Just try and go in more fresh.
Wait a minute. John, are you revealing that you have seen this?
I didn't reveal. If I ask me a
agreed right at
question,
the top.
I'll give you an answer. Yes, I have seen it.
So John did not even chime in until he's made some comment that makes it clear.
Very little that I could add.
Because Ed is doing such a great job.
Correct.
Well, we also didn't watch it together, and then we haven't talked about it until now. So this is the conversation. John, did you like it?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Look, unfortunately, coming to this in the theater and knowing that it was from Matthew Vaughn, Layer Cake, Kick-Ass, Kingsman, a lot of really fun movies, it didn't quite work in the same way for me, so it was challenging, but there were fun parts to it.
I totally understand why it wouldn't be what you were wanting from that director, because I didn't go into it with that expectation. So me finding out that it had these other movie elements that I enjoyed, I'm like, I don't mind that you're doing that. I can understand why that might not have been what people wanted. Okay.
And it also could be seeing it in the theater versus seeing it on streaming. You have different sort of expectations and bars that you're hoping to hit.
Well, and for me, even watching it on streaming, knowing it was a theatrical release, I'm like, the bar's different for this. There's some stuff with Netflix that wouldn't be good in a theater. Like, you couldn't have put that in the theater. No offense. But this one, yeah, I could see that in the theater. And also maybe why that's not the full-blown theater-going experience that you want to be having if your previous experience was these action films. There's not a subtext or an entire main layer that's not that. It's not, layer biscuit. It was a very boring top layer of a writer. Biscuit. Right. It's just it's the writer on top is like, well, that's not an exciting story. No one cares about a writer. If nothing was happening to this writer, we wouldn't be having this whole movie. Like, I wrote some amazing stuff that didn't come true and no one came after me. End.
It's over. Well, yes, it definitely looked very Kingsman-esque. So now that you've mentioned that's why.
So the last thing that I did bring, although not really crossing over with any of these, except in the supernatural way, John and I went and saw Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, the new one in the theater. And I'll let you know right now, you don't have to ask. I didn't watch all the 5 previous Ghostbusters or 4 previous Ghostbusters.
Okay. I can't believe that. I'm shocked.
I would have normally, but I'm there within the last, I don't know, year or two. I rewatched all of them then to watch the more recent one,
Ghostbusters Afterlife. And I did review that on the pod, but this time I felt pretty fresh on those, and also I'm not forgetting Paul Rudd performances, so those are very fresh for me, even though I may not have watched it very recently. Paul Rudd as Gary Gruberson. That's amazing. He's a high school science teacher, man. Science.
Awesome.
He has now gotten married to Carrie Coon's character, Callie Spengler.
Did they?
Yeah, they talked
Okay.
about. Well, yeah, we're. Can she call me dad now? Yes.
There was a
Because-
very funny through line of that joke of
Yes.
like, what am I to these children?
Oh,
Can
in
I
the
tell them
previous
what to-
one, you mean?
No, in this current one, because
No, Katherine.
previously
Oh.
he had a dictated role. He was their teacher. So yes, I tell them stuff, and they're my students, so they do things.
Oh, so
He's
you're
their
saying
step teacher.
Yeah,
he's
it's
their step teacher. That's a perfect position.
previously my teacher. So your authority is nil.
Well, we're going to get to it, but should I just break out? That was, perfectly pointed out by one of a former Ghostbuster cast member coming back, William Atherton.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
mom's
gosh.
neighbor.
Our mom's neighbor. Amazing.
Yeah, now he's the mayor and is still extremely unexcited for Ghostbusters.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
honestly, I'd have taken a TV series of the DA to mayor of Bill Atherton's character. I would have enjoyed the last 20 years of him in New York trying to unravel what they did and take that one building down. He never got it done. But he made mayor anyways. He must have gotten off that top. Mayor Walter Peck. God. Yes, it's true. This man has no dick. All right, and so then last a couple cast shout outs, because this time around they did make an effort to bring as many of the original Ghostbusters back. So we did get Bill Murray,
Right.
and we also got Dan Aykroyd, and we got Ernie Hudson, and we also got Annie Potts.
Nice.
Amazing.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we got
Melditz. Looking
Melditz.
good. Looking sporty, I think.
Oh yeah.
I think.
I don't want the main originals to like do a Ghostbusters 3 with just them fighting as ghosts or something like that. I mean, I want that, but like they gave it to us at Ghostbusters 2 and they're like, suck it in, boys, like they gave us the kind of older stately gentlemen in their 50s. So maybe I don't need the 70s or 80s. Thankfully, there was a team of them all working together and fighting these ghosts this time. So to fill out the rest of the cast, there's also Finn Wolfhard, which I'm sure we all know from Stranger Things, and McKenna Grace. I don't know why Mad Men is popping into my head. She's been in plenty of other stuff.
For me, it's Handmaid's Tale. She was recently in Handmaid's Tale, and she's styled so differently in this. She's been doing promotion more with her blonde hair and whatever.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, yeah, for sure. I've seen her in so much where she's playing a very different type of character. She was very alarming and chilling in Handmaid's Tale.
Yes.
She's great. She's
and,
really great.
Very crafty in Sabrina as a witch. So
Yeah.
there's plenty
Oy.
of variety with that actress.
Good for her. She's a talented young lady.
And kind of filling in a spot that probably is not going to get brought back up. Rick Moranis is kind of retired from the entertainment business. Kumail Nanjiani fell into that position for this for me, and he crushed it. I fully enjoyed his performance. It was very funny. As far as this whole movie is concerned, it's got Paul Rudd in it. How are you going to go? Have you found a Paul Rudd movie that's bad yet? I haven't.
There you go.
No, Paul Rudd's fantastic. Well, and also, I love to see that this franchise is getting reinvigorated because they had the one with Melissa McCarthy, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones, which
And
did not
Kristen
do well.
Wiig.
Oh, and Kristen Wiig.
Yep.
I enjoyed
really
that.
liked it.
And Chris Hemsworth.
We
Oh
all
my
loved
God,
it.
Chris Hemsworth was hysterical in it. Yeah. So I was sad that didn't do well enough to be like, that's the direction we're going. So, but a lot of times with properties like this in Hollywood, it's like, we're just going to keep retrying because maybe we can get it back going. And they have.
Yeah. So recommend all of the Ghostbusters franchise.
All of the Ghostbusters franchise. Great. Okay. All right. Is that it for you, Ed?
And that's all I've got.
All right, cool. Okay. John, you're up.
Ooh, okay, sure. So I went to the theater and saw Civil War.
Oh, Civil War.
Look, it is challenging, but it was slightly different than I thought it was going to be. Because it's all from the perspective of these journalists. Already it's so off from what you think it's going to be. Not that that's not known or like possibly able to be figured out, but I just did not realize how much that would change what the movie experience would be. So your main characters are these 4 journalists, a mixture of 2 photojournalists and then 2 writing journalists, whatever that would be. So we have Kirsten Dunst, so good. Wagner Moura, who didn't know as much, but he's all over the place now.
Yeah, he's popping up everywhere because
Yeah.
recently he was just in Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yep.
And I'd seen him in Shining Girls. He was really good. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, apparently Pablo Escobar in Narcos, so very serious. A little different, I think, than this role. He was very fun here, so that was different.
I do think, not to be, again, on the pronunciation thing, even though it's spelled Wagner, I believe it is Wagner.
You may think that, and he may as well, and I have said what I've said. And we're going to go into the third and fourth one, which I'm equally not going to do well, but Kaylee Spaney, she was our young person in this group, and then our older gentleman in this group, Stephen McKinley Henderson.
Okay.
Yeah, at one point, not nicely, they were said, I have a kindergarten and an old folks home in the back seat.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, because it is weird because you're the whole thing, and I don't know how accurate this is for, war journalism. There is a war happening, and you're all up in it, trying not to die. So,
Which seems kind of scary and not a great idea.
being spry, if not young, is helpful. So if you're too old to be spry, then that's a real challenge.
Ew.
And if you're too young to be smart, then that's a different challenge. In the end, it's really not about the politics, so that's very enjoyable. And otherwise, real white knuckle, thriller kind of a deal.
Which is not usually up your alley.
I'm a big fan of the thriller that's not also a horror. That's a different thing.
That's
when it's just a normal thriller without, that is my thing.
okay. Got it.
Because, what's the difference between that and an action movie? Oh, not much. Or, depending. So anyway, quite enjoyable. There was Alex Garland, who's, had brought us quite a few good movies. This is his fourth directorial effort. Ex Machina, Annihilation, Men, which we talked
28
about.
Days.
So he wrote that. It's interesting, the collaboration with him and Danny Boyle, because he wrote the novel for The Beach, but then he didn't adapt it for Danny Boyle's movie. But then he did write 28 Days Later and then Sunshine with Danny Boyle. So quite a lot. Yeah, he's interesting. And then Katherine, he's got the TV show Devs.
Oh, that was so good.
It turns out there's a ton of crossover. So Steven and Nick Offerman, who appears in this, and then I think there's one or two others. I'm forgetting who they are. Oh, Kaylee was all in Devs. So I haven't seen Devs, but they're all from there. And then Sonoya, who comes up, she's been in apparently everything that he's directed. So she had a part here as well.
Wow, cool. Devs is amazing. And now that you mention all of those cast members, I have seen promotion for Civil War, and yeah, they're all in there. That's very interesting.
He uses, it's not all of his crew, but like the cinematographer, the music, there's something else that has been all of his. So he does use the same crew over and over again, including some actors. So that all worked well for me.
I did see a TikTok that was specifically about that originally maybe this should have been called Journalists During a Civil War. And it was very funny. They were doing like a countdown to like the release. They were like, pretty soon we're going to be releasing Journalists in a Civil War. Maybe we should just call it Civil War. But that would be mildly confusing because it's not really about the Civil War. It is about the journalists in the Civil War. And then, of course, at the very end, they're like, let's just call it Civil War.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a way of coming at war that's very helpful because it's like, it's humanizing it. It's also just showcasing how terrible it is. It doesn't matter what the politics are. It's terrible for both sides. There are people dying. This is bad.
And the people that don't know, it's a contemporary modern day, as if the United States was thrown into a civil war again.
We have no idea why it happens. So who knows why. But yes, civil war in terms of just one nation divided against itself.
Yeah, because you would assume, based on Civil War, that it would be much more about why is the Civil War happening? Who is fighting who and why and all of that.
The why or how can we stop it are neither ever talked about.
Interesting.
It's more of a zombie apocalypse post. We're surviving this now.
It's already
we don't
happened.
know how it happened.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I wanted to come up with a good metaphor or something, but it was very 28 Days Later zombie-esque in terms of like we're on the road, which is dangerous, and then we're gonna stop. But like, is this place extra dangerous? It felt that was very zombie-like.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So so many setups are like that in this, and you're just like, oh, what? So now in this road stop, what's gonna happen now? So
also this idea, this idea of like trying to do a job when there's all this craziness going on around you, and that this is something that people do currently in other countries, doing war correspondence work. It's crazy.
Yep.
All right, what else you got, John?
So the other thing that I did was I rewatched on HBO the 2018 Ocean's 8.
Ocean's 8.
Sweet.
Oh, okay, sure.
I mean, I'm sorry, it's only the 5th time. Or I'm sorry, no, that this was the 6th time.
Oh, this was the 6th.
So still not
Ocean's 8.
Yes.
You probably should have just watched it multiple times till you got to 8, just so you could say, I've watched Ocean's 8
Right.
times. I mean,
I don't do this for you, Catherine.
oh, geez, okay. I mean, you shouldn't do it for you, John.
Yeah, you're welcome. I could just not talk about it. How about that? But look, how much fun is this movie? Sandra Bullock, Kate Blanchett. I mean, every single person, Anne Hathaway, Mindy Kaling, Sarah Paulson, Rihanna, Helena Bonham Carter. I mean, all of them are so fantastic.
Also, I love It's All the Ladies. Come on. That's great.
It's not about him. It's because it's a hymn. Exactly. No hymns. Well, I mean, there's a couple. But anyway, then you have later this thing where they use some older, non-professional actors. Oh, she did, this whatever in this town, which were very fun. And they don't get enough time, these ladies, but most of them get a scene. So Marlo Thomas, Dana Ivey, Marla Louise Wilson, and Elizabeth Ashley are fantastic, though they, as I said, don't get enough time.
Okay, that's a good rewatch. Where is that available? Did you say Max?
I think so, yeah. It is kind of on a lot. It's very frequently on some streaming service.
It's available in various places. Yeah. I know. I would watch that. If I was just flipping around and it was on, I would leave it on for sure. It's a good movie.
I mean, they didn't do all that to steal one jewel when they could steal all the jewels.
I mean, genius. I also really love Anne Hathaway's character being like, no, I'm involved now.
Chilly.
Twist. Yeah, I liked her.
Yeah, no, that was a good one. As always in this, there's always like, well, we actually have 7 or 10 or 11 or 12 criminals. Who is the 8th criminal? And then it's kind of like, there's actually like 10. It's like, okay, whatever. But
We've lost count.
Who's the official 8th? And then she's the official 8th.
Love it. All right, cool. Okay, well, I think we could do like a little recap of who watched what. So I and Liz both watched Baby Reindeer, which is available on Netflix. It's a limited series. It's 7 episodes. Super good. I watched the movie Shirley, also available on Netflix, and am currently watching Dead Boy Detectives, which is a TV series on Netflix.
Great. I watched the Synanon Fix, which is on HBO Max. It's 4 episodes. And I also watched The Gentleman, which is a Guy Ritchie series on Netflix.
And I watched Argylle on Apple TV Plus, and The Girls on the Bus on HBO Max, and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire in theaters.
And I watched Civil War in the theaters and Ocean's 8 on HBO.
Okay, that's it for this episode. You can follow us on all of our social media at Podcast Watching, and you can watch us on the Knack Entertainment YouTube channel. So thank you for joining us for What We're Watching.